Here we go, Time and the Conways.
Time in the Conways.
And this is, well, it marks the return of Elizabeth McGovern. Little known fact, Elizabeth McGovern, between her Brat Pack days and doing Downton Abbey, was made several theater appearances. She was in Shakespeare in the Park, in As You Like It, giving a wonderful Rosalind. She did something, I think it was the WPA with, she was, Cara Sedgwick was also
Cara
in
Sedgwick
it.
was in that?
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was, though.
It was a long time ago. I don't remember.
Oh, it's in here,
it
I'm
involved
sure.
a traveling salesman, and both of them were interested in him.
Was it called The Traveling Salesman by any chance?
No idea. And so I really loved her as a stage actress. Here she is the matriarch of this British family. This play takes place in, I think, 1919 and 1937, and then it goes back to 1919. 1919, they're this rich, frivolous family. But I think
Well, they're not all rich and frivolous. She's rich and frivolous. One son is off at the war. One son is kind of like a
nonchalant.
He's a non-entity. He's more than nonchalant.
Well,
He's
he doesn't care about anything. He's whatever will be, will be. I'm happy with my remedial job. You know, there's one time in the play in the second act where we find out that it was something he actually wanted. This is Gabriel Elbert, and
Yes,
I have to say
he's Ebert, and he's wonderful.
he
I've
stands
seen him.
out.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Ebert. He does stand out as the brother. Elizabeth McGovern is all right. She's, you know, I guess if you liked her in Downton Abbey, you won't be disappointed. But if you're expecting her to be the star, it's really more of an ensemble.
But it's the play that we need to talk about because
well, in the second act, we see them in 19 years later,
in 1937.
and what has become of them.
But the end of the first scene at this party, which I think is Halloween because they're dressing up, or maybe it's just.
I think it's just a party.
Just a party.
They're doing charades.
Yeah, you're right. It's charades. Okay. So one of the girls gets a feeling like somebody walked over her grave, you know.
Right.
And she
says,
that's
Charlotte Perry as Kay.
And she says, "Did you ever think you could just sometimes look just around the corner and see the future?" And of course, that sets up the next scene.
Right.
And because this is done without the Act 1 and Act 2 are put together as one act.
Right.
This incredible set by, of all people, Derek McLean. This is not a Derek. This is not a Derek McLean set.
Well,
I'm used to seeing very sharp angles. No, I'm telling you, I was very pleased at the change. And so this set that we saw backs up, and the new set comes down and fits exactly in front, and it's all scrim, so you can still see the old set. And it's a brilliant way of showing that it's different.
Right.
And of course, everybody's older, and they're miserable, and they're unhappy, and the girl who was going to be a suffragette is now a spinster.
Well, she is a
she was a socialist.
Well, she's socialist, and she still, to an extent, is. But interestingly, she's upset because her mother had not lent her the money to buy into a school.
Yes,
she is a headmistress.
Yeah, but she wanted her own school.
And she wanted it, and
the mother had the money, but wanted to spend it on parties.
Right. Well, also on one of the other sons.
And on the favored son. There's a favored son who becomes an alcoholic.
Yes, that's Alfredo Narcisco, I believe.
No,
I'm sorry. Matthew James Thomas as Robin.
Right.
And there's Stephen Boyer as the nerdy.
Yes.
Who marries one of the girls and becomes a real jerk along the way. But here's the question.
No, he becomes a rich jerk along the way. Which
he was always a jerk?
Thing. He was always a jerk.
Okay.
But he becomes a rich jerk, and then he becomes mean and pushes everybody.
Here's the question. At the end of that, they go back to 1919, and we see not all, but some of the seeds.
Right.
And here is my question, because at one point you say Kay is thinking she has this premonition. So, did 1939 really happen?
37.
Yeah, sorry, 1937. Is this really does this really happen, or did she dream it, imagine it?
Does that matter to you?
Yeah. Yes. I'm
okay,
curious.
No, I thought the play was sufficient unto itself.
Because in this, well, the way they have her reacting in the final scene, I think Rebecca Teichman leaves that open. Most people think, no, this is actually what happens to the family, but I want to entertain the prospect that maybe it won't necessarily happen.
Okay, well, that's interesting that you got all that. And here's the thing. Rebecca Teichman won the Tony and won the Drama Desk Award for Indecent. And what she did to show the past in Indecent, the ways that she showed things, both physically and with little things like the sand coming out of people's sleeves, touched my very soul. I swear to you,
Right.
they did. This play didn't touch me, and I was very disappointed. I thought, there's going to be a past, and she'll do something. What she did was fairly standard. But there's nothing wrong with doing fairly standard. It's just that when you've done something brilliant and you come back and do something standard, it's unfortunately like Julie Taymor, whom we're going to be talking about later as well.
Actually, not
this
this
time,
year,
but
yeah.
soon. But I just, so that that disappointed me. The play is, J.B. Priestley had read a book about can you see the future, the premonition kind of idea, and so it gave him the seed of an idea for a play.
Right.
I think he tried to put the story of what the book tells into something dramatic, into a form, rather than letting it be organic, so that everybody had to sort of play their appointed roles, and I didn't feel that they were real people. That was my problem.
Okay,
And that's in the play.
I certainly did.
Okay.
In the 1937 act,
Okay,
area of it, they're a lot sharper.
Much
They're a
more
lot more
serious,
defined.
right.
Well, they have to be. In the first act, they're frivolous, but they have their dreams, and well, dreams don't always come out as you
I
would
said
hope.
Derek McLean did the set. I'm sorry, it was Neil Patel. My apologies. I'm so sorry, Neil. I'll come down and buy you a coffee. Excuse me.
Okay.
Whoa, how could I do that?
All right. Well, fortunately, we got that, and maybe that's why it wasn't that that different type.
No,
type of set.
now I can see why. But
Right.
what are we going to give it?
Well, I'm going to give this 3, maybe even 3.5. I think 3 is probably more accurate, but I did enjoy it. Again, I think what you say is valid,
Thank you.
but
That's high praise,
it does,
indeed.
and certainly I think Elizabeth McGovern fans will be
She was fine.
satisfied, if not overawed.
We haven't
It's
finished
not-
talking about Stephen Boyer, who was in Hand to God. He was the boy in Hand to God, which is why he seems so familiar. And here he is playing this guy who comes in, and he's all hunched over, and thank you so much for letting me come in. And he gets the girl he wants because he finds a way to make money. And then he's a rich guy.
Yeah.
And they all need him, and he could care less about any of them.
Right.
And that's a wonderful. I love that.
Well,
role.
they do treat him shabbily.
Oh,
but he's
worse.
but he's not a great person.
Like, who knows what he might have been?
That's true.
He's not formed
That's true.
when he comes in.
Okay, and that is our show for this evening. What is your conclusion on it? How many playbills?
I'd go 3.
Okay.
I'd go 3.
And that is our show for this evening. And when you go to the theater, look for Leslie and me, us too.
On the aisle.
If you're having a party, you're having a party.
Yes, it isn't that. And it isn't that you suddenly dislike the people, but you feel... Well, at least I do, and I suppose that's what Father felt too. You feel quite suddenly that it isn't real enough. And you want something to be real, do you see, Mother?
No, I don't. It sounds a little morbid to me, but then your father could be quite morbid sometimes, and I suppose you take after him.
Do you think that sometimes, in a mysterious sort of way, he knew?
Knew what? Dear, look at Hazel. Doesn't she look sweet? I can remember where I first wore that. Absurd. Knew what?
Knew what was going to happen to him. You know, Alan said that some of the men he knew who were killed in the trenches seemed to know sometimes that they were going to be killed. As if a kind of a shadow fell over them. Just as if now and then we could see around the corner into the future.
Mother, Joan did stay in London last week, and she went to 3 theatres.
She has relatives there. We haven't. That makes a great difference.
Oh, aren't we ever going?
Yes, of course. Perhaps Robin will take us, just you and me, when he comes back.
It said in the paper this morning that we must all get on with our jobs. That this mere rush for amusement after the war has gone on long enough now, and there's work waiting to be done.
A fat lot of rushing for amusement we've done, haven't we? I think that's frightfully unfair and idiotic. Just when we might have some fun, after years of washing up in canteens and hospitals and queuing for foul food with nobody about at all, and they go and say we've had enough amusement and must get on with our jobs. What jobs?
Rebuilding a shattered world, it said that too.
Your job will be to find a very nice young man and marry him, and that oughtn't to be difficult for you.
Oh yes, hurry up, Hazel, and then I can be a bridesmaid.